Which camera? Which camera? Establishing? Ooh, let me tweet really quick. Oh, yeah, I thought you were just going to. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another Office Hours Live. I see we've already got some folks coming in. So the key here is that if you go online to www.drchuck.com/office, you will see that 70 times in the last 8 years, I have traveled to some location around the world and met my students. It's really one of the great joys of my life. And, the first one was in New York City in 2012, and I literally had sent email to about 80,000 people and said, I'm going to a Starbucks by New York University, NYU, and I'll be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I was like walking up and I'm like, are these people even going to show up? Who's going to show up? What's it going to be like? And it was joyful and fun. And, with good presence of mind, I made a little film. And that film is still online, and you can sort of go. And if you look at my www.drchuck.com/office, you go into New York City, you zoom way into New York City, and eventually you will find your way to that NYU, that very original NYU. Let me see if I can hover and see something. What does it say? July 26, 2012. I think that is the very first one. And the very most recent one was in Kyoto, and it was great. I've gotten better at doing it. We rented a karaoke box in Kyoto, and Shoji, a friend of mine, was with me and helped me organize it, and he actually sort of acted a bit as filmmaker. And so you can kind of see the progression of my face-to-face office hours. And part of the logic that I have for these face-to-face office hours, and I've told many of you these stories, is whenever I go somewhere, everyone says, you're such a nice person and you're doing this as a great service. And maybe, but it brings me great joy. And the problem is when you have millions of online students that are enjoying a class, and I do work to make the class fun, you get more out of the class when you take it than I do. And so for me, coming to visit you and meeting you is sort of my payback. That's my compensation, my feeling that I'm part of the class too. If I didn't ever meet anybody or talk to you, then I wouldn't feel like I'm part of my own class. I'm just kind of like the puppet in the front, and someone's just moving my mouth. I record. I mean, some of the videos you're watching are 5-6 years old, and I feel disconnected, but I don't feel disconnected when I come see you. And of course, with the worldwide pandemic and its limitations on travel and my own sort of sanity and safety, we're not going to do that for a while. I can't wait to get back to it. In my mind, I'm going round and round and round about the next place I'm going to go and the next way I'm going to meet students and how to be a little more controlled. I mean, it's kind of the worst thing in a pandemic is to show up in a bar with a bunch of people all close and people all over the world and sit and talk excitedly for 2 hours, and then, well, that's just not a good idea. It just isn't a good idea. And so that's what these live office hours are. And live office hours, we're doing them from the studio here at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And we're putting them up, and I got a YouTube, I got this /office, and if you click on the live button here, you will go, okay, so I'm not going to play it, but if you click on the live button in my office hours, you will go to the most recent live. And if you're on right now and you go to drchuck.com/office and click on live, you will join this live right now. And so you will be on our on here, and I will talk to you. And so I just this is our substitute for coming to visit you until things are better and I can go back to coming to visit you. One of the things that I'm going to do is think about my own travel differently, because I have been a very professional traveler. I've been in Detroit airport an average of 1.2 times a week for the past 15 years. And I love travel and I love meeting people. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do less travel for giving conference talks and more travel to actually meet you, right? More travel to meet students. And it means that my next places that I'm going to go, if you look at the map, you will see that there are large swaths of place that I haven't been. Like I haven't been to like South America at all. And that's just because I don't have a lot of conferences in South America. I've been to Africa because my open source project Sakai takes me there from time to time. And I've been to India and got great joy in India. But there's places that I want to go. I've not been to, the Sweden or Norway or Finland. And so one of the things I'm going to do after COVID makes it so that it's practical for me to travel again is go places I haven't gone. Go places that I go for happiness, not just for professional stuff. And I did all my travel for professional stuff. And all of it was a side effect of my professional travel. But now I'm going to start traveling just for the purpose of meeting you and enjoying places that I haven't been, because I've been a lot of places, as you can see on the map, and I've been to more places than that. And so that's the first topic I wanted to talk about. I didn't plan to Egypt. Colombia, yeah. So Egypt. So what I'll have to do, and I do want to go to places like Egypt and Constantia, hello, I do want to go to Greece. Places like Egypt and Turkey, I'm going to need someone locally to kind of take care of me, right? Because I'm just, I guess if I go to Germany, I can just stumble off of a plane and grab an Uber and go somewhere. But in Egypt, I would be uncomfortable doing that, at least the first few times I went. And I'm told that, even though there's a lot of things in the media that make places like Egypt or Turkey seem scary to someone like me living in my happy little subdivision in the United States of America, I'm told that it's not all as scary as we see events, but those events are not representative, and people who are confident travelers are capable of going to all these places. And I, though, for the first time, I need some help. I need a guide. And so I may be contacting folks when I'm back traveling, going to farther away places. I would love to go to Egypt. I would love to go to Turkey. I would love to go to Greece. I would love to go to Colombia. I would love to go to Brazil, Argentina, wherever. But you have to tell me that it's okay, and then you'll tell me, I'll meet you at the airport, and I'll make sure that you're okay. Will I attend PyCon India September 21? I think September 21 is a little early for me to be back on airplanes to India, but one of my tricks to get to India is to go to PyCon, and I'm looking forward to coming back to India again. My friends, I've met so many wonderful people at India. My friends at the Vision Aid organization who help young blind people in India, and we teach them technology, and now my company's actually employing some of them, and so I want to get back again. I've been a big supporter and fan of all the work that's being done with blind folks in India. And I'll talk more about accessibility and blind folks when I start talking about C programming for everybody, which is my latest and greatest thing. Kenya, yeah, the middle of Africa, right? I've been to the southern tip of Africa, South Africa, because of my friends at Northwest University and University of Cape Town and UWO and other places. And I have friends in Ghana, and I've always wanted to go to Ghana as well. So So, Dr. Chuck, besides teaching Python, what work do you do? Well, I'm a professor. My day job is a professor at the University of Michigan, and I teach classes. Right now, I'm scheduled in September to teach Django, and I also teach Postgres. The Django class I teach is available to you on Coursera and elsewhere as Django for Everybody. The Postgres class that I teach is available to you on Coursera and elsewhere as Postgres for Everybody. And the weird thing is the next course I'm going to teach might be taught to you first. And that is that I'm having a meeting with my boss, Beth, and I'm having a meeting with her and saying, can I teach C to our students? And she may say, nah. I'm like, okay, I'll teach C to people online. Or she might say, yeah, I think our students will like that. So we'll have to see whether or not the next class I'm going to teach to you, which I am definitely going to teach online to you all, is C, whether or not I get to teach that to my online students. Now, the other thing that I do is work on a number of open source educational technology projects. And so for those of you who've taken my classes, you know that I got gadgets. I have gadgets that nobody else has. I have things inside Coursera and edX and FutureLearn that nobody else has because they use learning tools interoperability, and I'm able to build auto graders, and I'll talk more about auto graders when I talk for CC for Everybody. And so I have unique things that I'm capable of doing that really, I think, make my classes a lot more fun to do, and a lot more of your time is focused on practical things. So, Parth, will CC Free be available on Coursera? I can't say yes to that because I have to go through an application process and a committee and be approved. And I've already got 4 things on Coursera: Python, Django, Postgres, and PHP MySQL. So far, I've been pretty lucky. They've said yes to all the crazy things. And we'll cross that bridge when we get to it because it takes me a long time to develop the material. And one of the things I'll show you today is the kinds of stuff that I'm working on for CC for E. I mean, I've got myself a self-imposed deadline of September to have at least sort of 10 weeks of CC4E ready to teach September 1st. But it's a lot of work. It's really a lot of work because I build so much gadgetry around all my courses, and I do research, and I try to advance the state of the art in how to teach in every course that I build. And so you asked what I do. The other thing that I do is I have this company called Learning Experiences, www.learnxp.com, and a lot of faculty have their kind of little side hustle company, and Learning Experiences is my side hustle company. And what I do there is I employ people to work on open source software. I have currently 2 full-time employees and 5 part-time employees, and they work on the Sakai project, the Sugi project, which is my own learning technology that's open source that builds all the stuff I do. And so that's my side hustle. And so there we go. So Carlos, Dr. Chuck, please teach us how to prepare for a development environment to study and contribute to Sakai. Carlos, that is my secret goal, but I have to teach you everything before that, right? And that's CC for E is something that I'm going to teach you in that I'm going to teach you the basics because working on Sakai is a really challenging thing. And if you can work on Sakai, if you already know C and you already know Java, you probably could work on Sakai. And the thing that I love about Sakai is that it is all open source, and it's 1 million lines of code, and it's a mess. I mean, it's not a terrible mess, but it's 15-year-old software, and so it has different techniques in the code. And if you were to go to work at Oracle or Microsoft or Facebook, you would realize that they don't rewrite their code every time something new comes out. They do expand it in areas. When they're expanding it, they use newer technology, but then they drag around all this old technology. And it just turns out that that's an important part of software engineering is long-lived software. And so if you're Facebook, you got code that was written in 2010 that you're still dragging along. And then you have to figure out how to isolate that. And that is something that I think you're never taught in any computer science curriculum, and that is how to deal with non-fresh code, how to deal with non-pristine code, how to deal with code that is just lived in the real world. And there are things, we spend so much time in computer science making you write a program from scratch in the latest technology, which is not a bad thing to do, but we don't teach you to look at code that is not written from scratch, that thousands of other people have built, i.e. in your company or in your open source project. And so that itself is a skill, and it's a skill that I don't think is taught anywhere. Meaning there's no computer science program on the planet, as best I know, that actually teaches you what it's like to work inside large enterprise, long-lived applications that are actually important and people use, and the consequences of making a mistake in those pieces of software is significant. I mean, the stakes are high. And when you're working in that, it's a real joy because you have customers, and companies are based on the software that you're writing, and people's employment is based on the software you're writing. And that's what it takes to be a professional programmer, right? Which is different than being a computer scientist. People say, oh, computer science, you learned a bunch of stuff. Welcome to Facebook. None of what you did in college has anything to do, and you're going to spend the next year figuring out how to code at Facebook. And that's how things work. And the same is true for Amazon, and the same is true for anywhere. All the computer science preparation prepares you for the interview, not the job. And I'm uninterested in preparing you for the interview. You can do that on your own. There's like HackerRank and a million ways to learn how to pass that stupid interview at those stupid companies. But I want to teach you how to be successful in those companies after you get the job. So, okay, let's see. Okay. Hello from Tunisia. So, yeah. Oh, hey, Stephen, you're on. And so Stephen is one of my teaching assistants. You see him if you go into my office hours in Britain and go to Bletchley Park. You can meet Stephen, because I always meet Stephen in Bletchley Park. Where's Bletchley Park? So there's a bunch of office hours in Bletchley Park. You got it. Well, there's one of them. Yeah, there's Stephen's in that one. So there you go. That's Stephen. So, yeah. Okay. So, Lucky, what should I learn after Python for Everybody specialization? I think the right thing to do is actually take the Django for Everybody specialization, or Py 3. And as Stephen said, you can go with courses 1 and 2 in Python for Everybody, and then go to Python 3 for University of Michigan, because that's a more rigorous course. Or you can go to Django if you're interested in web. And here's what I would say. When you're done with Python for Everybody, you are not like a code wizard. You are ready to learn. And that's my goal. My goal is to make you ready to learn in Python for Everybody. I don't want to have you, I don't want you to be scared. All I'm trying to do in Python for Everybody is make you not scared. The problem is once you're not scared, you actually got to learn. And so you learn not to be scared in my class, and then you learn programming in other classes. So Micah, hi Dr. Chuck, been stuck for weeks. Need help with Pi 4E assignment 8.4, putting data collected from a file into an empty list and then sort. So Micah, this is what office hours are typically for. And who knows, maybe I should actually just do 8.4 in front of you just because I could, right? It's a thought. But here's my advice that I always give Micah. You are, every time you push your knowledge out a little farther, it's painful. It hurts. Sometimes you can read it, figure it out, and you're pretty good. And then your knowledge is out farther. And then you have to move out a little farther. And then you have to move out a little farther. I will tell you that I have been doing this for longer than long since before any of you were born. And when I am moving my knowledge out farther, I can be very frustrated. I can be very angry. Don't assume that just because I'm like a professor and I've been doing it a long time that I don't get just as lost as you. Going from chapter 7 to chapter 8 for you is like for me. Right now I'm learning Docker, and I don't know. And luckily I have a mentor. His name is Michael. I'm going to get a hold of him in a bit. I'm going to say, Michael, I need just for you to talk Docker to me for an hour because I'm not sure about Docker and it has to do with C programming for everybody. So this is my advice when you do 8.4. My guess is you're pretty good at chapter 7. So what you should do is you just should leave 8.4 alone. Go back to chapter 7 or even chapter 6 and forget that you know that stuff and pretend you're learning chapter 6 and chapter 7 again and do the homework for chapter 6 and chapter 7. And that's what I do when I'm stuck, is I go back to something I understand and kind of find another way around it or try to do something like this Docker thing. I was almost late to the studio because I was thinking about this Docker thing so much. But go back to chapter 6 and chapter 7 and do them again. And then I will bet you, almost certainly, when you come back to 8.4, you're like, oh, why was I so confused about 8.4? 8.4 is really easy. And so the problem is not that 8.4 is difficult. Nothing in Python for Everybody is difficult. The problem is that you sort of ran into one little thing in 8.4 and you sort of lost your confidence. You feel like, oh, wait a sec. And again, this happens to me. It's not you, it's me, it's all of us. We all feel this way. You lose your confidence and then you're not in the right mind state to go forward. And that's why you have to sometimes think about these things in the shower. But for you, for 8.4, go back to 6, do the problems in 6, do the problems in 7, and I bet you that 8.4 will be great. Yeah. Okay, so you guys really want me to do problem 8.4. I guess I should do problem 8.4 just because it's office hours and it's a thing. Okay, so here we go. Problem 8.4. So I'm going to do it on Python for Everybody. So pythonforeverybody.com is Chuck Severance. I hope I can do this. Oh, yeah, great, Chuck. Now I got to get a code to log in. Hang on, let me get that code. 9A. Oh, I shouldn't say that out loud. 211. Oh, yeah, you're watching it live. It doesn't matter. That code doesn't do you much good. You need my phone, too. Okay, so I'm going to do it on Python for Everybody. And the cool thing about Python for Everybody is it is always available for free. You can take this on Coursera. You can take it on FutureLearn. You can take it on edX. But this is always free for you. And so this is my gift to you that makes sure. So let's go to chapter 8, which I believe is 9 on this list. And then exercise 8.4. I got to make it a little smaller so it fits on. Okay. Open the file romeo.txt and read it line by line. For each line, split the line into words using the split method. The program should build a list of words for each word on the line. Check to see if the word is already in the list, and if not, append to the list. When the program completes, sort and present the resulting words in alphabetical order. You can download the sample code here. Okay. Can I move this a little bit? Yeah. Okay. So here's a thing that you're going to figure out, and that is when you come to my office hours, I am not the best office hours teacher. So Stephen, who is one of my teaching assistants on Coursera, Stephen will be patient with you, and he'll ask you lots of questions, and he'll try to get you to think about the assignment. When you come to my office hours, I just do the assignment and show you the answer, because I just am not that good. And so if you're on campus, we have a pattern of courses called, a pattern of teaching called lecture and discussion. So you have lecture sections where I get up in a big room and I say funny things, and then you go into discussion with like 10 to 20 students, and then there's another teacher, grad student usually, graduate student usually, and they help you. And I'm thankful for those graduate students because I'm not that good helping you. I do get your homework done because I show you the answer, because I just can't figure out. I don't have the patience, and that's just a flaw of mine. I'm not saying that's good. That's a flaw of mine. Okay, so let's see. So here we go. I got some sample code. Let's make sure it's reset, and I'm starting from scratch. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this be romeo.text, because that way I don't have to keep typing that in. because code doesn't really ask me to do that. So let's see. I certainly see right away that's got to be indented. And it's making a list, and it's open the file. Let's just see what happens. Ooh, the coach. And so I have coaching in here. The coach is saying, why didn't you use split? Yeah, well, I'm just partly doing it. So this is how I write code, right? I don't try to solve the whole problem. What I like to do is I like to get my code working, right? So I got working code. I don't have any syntax errors, right? And so I have no syntax errors, and so I'm happy. And this much works because I do know that I have to open the file, make a list, and then read the file, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a variable called WDZ for words equals line.split. I'm going to call the split method on a string object that is the line. And this was the line. And this another thing that I do is I am crazy about prints. So I say print the words. So now we see each line. Ignore this little mismatch thing. That's because the output isn't right yet. So I'm going to print the words, right? And now I'll run the code. And so what you see is, okay, coach. I'm going to use the append. I really am going to use the append. That's not how I code. I'm the one that wrote this line. So it's, So ignore the mismatch. There's that first line, but soft what light through yon window breaks. By the way, I'm going to have homage to, in CC Free, there's going to be all kinds of homage to Python for Everybody, including like this Romeo.txt and the clown stuff that you've seen in Python for Everybody. I'm gonna have that. Okay, and then split gives me a list, right? Based on white space, which is exactly what I wanted. And here's the part where I bet you're getting stuck. And that is, this is the first moment where you probably, in my class, where you probably have to write a loop within a loop, a nested loop, right? A loop within a loop. And so what I need to do is I need to go through, and I'm going to go through but, soft, what, light, through each of these words. And so now I'm going to comment out that print, and I'm going to say for wood in woods, so word in words, oops, that'd be a typo, print wood. So I commented out this print, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of those things in this inner loop. To make sure I'm constructing the loop properly, I am going to do that. So now you see, I will use append. I'm almost ready to use append, but soft what light through yon window breaks, but, right, so then it's east and Julia's sun, and you see it splitting and going through it, right? Did I spell Juliet right? I'm sure I copied and pasted this from somewhere. That'd be terrible. Okay, so now the thing is I've got this list. And now I've got to say, check to see if the word's already in the list, and if not, append it to the list. Now, I don't have a good way to make this complex. If word in list. And actually I have to say not, because if the word is not in, actually I think I could say not in the list. Shout me out if I'm making mistakes. Not in the list. Then list.append. So list is, LST is a list object, append is a method in there, and WD is a string. Right, we just printed it out, and we're going to do that. Now I've got to go back, all the way down, and then print LST. So let's run it. Now it should not complain. What? I'm supposed to sort it? I guess I didn't read that. Thank heaven these little coachy things are here. I'll never figure this out. Yep, sort and presents the revolting words in alphabetical order. Oh, crap. Here's a place where every time I go between different languages, I get messed up. I think in Python, I say, let's just try this. Sort, no, let's not do that. Let's make sure the code I wrote worked. Let's run this code. Doobie-doobie-doo. Yeah, okay. How come that print didn't happen? What's wrong? Oh, there we go. So I've gotten my list. It's not sorted. So what I'm going to do now, I'm feeling really good about all these lines up here, right? Those lines, I slowly but surely. So I'm going to comment this line out. I'm going to comment this line, and I'll delete these later. And so now I should hit the check code button, and yes, I'm going to use sort. So now I've got a list, right? But it's not in alphabetical order. So now I have to remember what the syntax for sort. Is anybody going to tell me what the sort is, or you're going to let me like stumble around? What line do I need here? Type in YouTube. Just type in YouTube what line I need to type here. So is it sort list? Oops, that's got to be backed up. I think this is the way you do it in PHP. So this is probably going to blow up. Oh, okay. Yep, you're okay. Thank you, Deepak. Okay, so I want to say, so sort is a method in a list object. Of course, Python is object-oriented. Again, my problem is I have too many languages. If this was PHP, which I write a lot of PHP, this would be it. So I'm going to say list equals, and this is the T equals list.sort according to the YouTube comments. Daniel as well. So let's go. No. Does it sort it in place? What? I haven't written Python for a while. Okay, everyone's telling me what I'm supposed to type. Let me just do. Is that really what I'm going to? Oh, it is what I'm going to do. So the online folks have been telling me the right answer, and I kept messing up. So, according to the online folks in the chat room, list is a list object and sort is the method, and it sorts it in place. Oh well, see? So there you go. And so here we go. Yeah, exactly. Saravesh, it returned none, and that's what we got when I made that mistake. I don't know what language needs it this way. Sometimes these sorts do in place, sometimes they don't do in place. Sometimes they return a sorted version of it. I like sorting in place because it doesn't necessarily need to allocate a bunch of new data. Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So this will teach you all for asking me to write code in front of you, because you will see. But think about this, right? I don't know who asked me to do question 8.4 in the first place. If you're having trouble with something, it doesn't mean that you're somehow bad or incompetent. I am not incompetent. I am just not up to speed on this one thing. And so because I hadn't written Python in a while and been writing PHP, I could have wrote this in PHP. It'd be a lot uglier in PHP because Python is way prettier than PHP. But that means that I'm kind of like you in that, like, I have to kind of come back to Python. And then I would probably go and say, Google, how to sort a list in Python. And hopefully somewhere in there they would give me something. Now give me a sample. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, W3 Schools. Yeah, there you go. See? And so that would be other fact that I have all of you sitting here live to help me doing this. And Stephen is going to do Fortran 90. Holy mackerel. Oh, Fortran 90 or Fall 90? Okay. So there we go. So I hope that that was helpful to those of you who wanted to do Python, do problem 8.4. And I won't be resistant. I will be happy to do a few of these things during every office hours and make a fool of myself to reveal my own imperfection in coding. The danger is, yeah, I could probably teach Hello World. Okay, so here we go. So I'm gonna teach you Hello World in front of you, and so let me switch topics to my latest creation. So this is my latest creation. Should we write if and elif overriding two different ifs. Oh, I always use elif. It's really bad, unless you're doing two different things. So let's go to www.cc4e.com. No, let's not do that. The first thing, I opened a private browser, and I'm going to go to www.cc4e.com. So the first thing you notice is that it's a secret, right? There's an unlock code that is a number. You will not be given the number. It's a puzzle to prove that you're worthy, because the key to this assignment, CC4E, is the first class where I expect you to have taken other courses. I'm not just saying C is not for literally, C is for everybody who wants to be a good programmer. So I'm pivoting from I'm pivoting from teaching you not to be afraid of programming. Django for everybody, web applications for everybody, Postgres are trying to make you a better programmer and teach you a breadth of skills, but gently. In CC4E, the idea is to teach you a depth of skills. And so the first time you come to CC4E, it challenges you. It says you have to figure out the puzzle. Whoa! You're not supposed to tell people what the answer is. All the people are telling people on the web what the answer is. And if you look, it's the number of, I get so many clues. Everyone wants the answer, but it's also the number of my race car, right? But it is the secret to life, universe, and everything. So yeah, of course, that's why it is. And my car is numbered 42 because of that. But the symbolic thing here, and here's the thing, here's the Easter egg. Every 15 days, when you unlock it, it relocks, and you have to unlock it again. But the answer is still 42, so it's not difficult to unlock it. But when you're taking C programming for everybody, every 15 days, it's going to lock you out and make you redo the puzzle, and then it will let you back in for 15 days. And of course, the number is 42. Why not? But come on, if you're in my class, you see the multiple choice tests and questions and variables and all kinds of stuff, right? Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's so much to learn from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And that, maybe I should say, part of the requirement of this course is you got to watch The Matrix and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy so you know all my dumb jokes. So we'll unlock it with 42, and in we go. So I'll close that. So I'll go back to www.cc4e.com on my account. So as I mentioned before, I have a meeting in the next couple of weeks with my boss, Beth Yeakel. I think she's on vacation, and she deserves it because she's a dean, and deans have a really difficult life. I do not want to ever be promoted to be my own boss. I much rather would have a boss because she has to work very hard. But she will tell me if she wants me to teach this material to on-campus students. I do want to teach it to on-campus students, but regardless, I am going to teach it to you. And so, as this website says, I am planning on having this site ready to beta teach in September 2021. The chances are good that the only place that I'll be teaching this class is at this website. So it's not going to be on Coursera, it's not going to be on edX, it's not going to be on FutureLearn, and that's because it's not going to be done, right? I mean, it is, it's a work in progress, and I'm hopeful that I can have like the first 4 chapters of the book ready by then, and so that's why I call it beta teaching. And the reason I've given myself this is that one of the first classes that I taught in my entire career was a class called Programming for Scientists in September 1991. And I'm trying to do this in September 2021. It doesn't take much math to figure out that's 30 years ago. And what I want to do is retrace the syllabus of that exact course with the exact assignments. We did that course on terminals in a lab with an AT&T 3B2 computer that was sitting in that same lab. And these are the assignments. I'm actually working with a computing museum in Seattle to try to talk to them They actually have real AT&T 3B2s, and we might be able to do some of the assignments on real AT&T 3B2s, but I got to talk to them about that. And so C programming for everybody. Now, this is just like everything I do. I sort of find what I think computer science is doing right and wrong, and then compensate for what computer science is doing wrong. And I think that computer science around the world, many of you have degrees in computer science, are foolishly focusing on C and C++ as the programming language for you to learn first. C is a language you eventually should learn, and in my curriculum you learn C in the middle. C is the sort of the moment of transition from where you're just learning what an if statement is and how to write a loop and what a list is, to the point where you're going to do more complex stuff. And the class I'm going to teach after C is not C++, it's actually Java. And I'm going to teach a lot of Java. And then once I teach Java, I will teach you C++, but only from a theoretical perspective. The need for C++ is so narrow in all of programming-dom that to teach you C++ in college is the first class you take is a horrible, horrible, horrible mistake. You need to have years of experience before you can begin to understand C++. You shouldn't try to learn what an if statement is in C++. It is a travesty that your curriculum committees at your schools are using C++. Anybody teaching C++ to a freshman or sophomore or high school student is not doing the right thing in my book. C, on the other hand, is, I think, essential, but not as a programming language. C is essential to understand the architecture of computers. And literally, it's kind of pointless trying to be a professional programmer if you don't understand how computers really work. Python and SQL are magical, but they're not magical. They're just so complex that they seem amazing. Artificial intelligence is not magical, but it's very complex and it's very intricate. And you say, well, if Python is magic, then how does Python make the magic? Thousands and thousands of super brilliant programmers for decades use C to build Python so that Python appears magical to us. C is what makes the magic happen. C is what made Unix happen. C is what made Minix happen, and Linux happen, and Java happen, and JavaScript happen, and Python happen. And if someone tells you, oh, Rust is the new blah, 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 well, take a look at what Rust is written in. It's probably written in C. So like, oh, you don't need Rust. The answer is you can go through a whole career and do nothing but Java, JavaScript, Python, CSS. Those are all magical. Use a web browser. What language are most web browsers written in? Oh, yeah, C, that'd be C. Okay? And so what happens is, as we work in this environment, the foundation of which is C. The internet was written in C, right? And so that doesn't mean you should write in C, or that if I was your boss, I would pay you to work in C, unless you needed to do something really specific, like in a satellite or something. But as Bjorn Strostrup will tell you, probably at that point, you probably should use C++, because writing C in a satellite means the satellite's going to bang into some asteroid or something, because it messes up. And there's examples of bad code that C totally lets you do. But C is fast, and it teaches you computer architecture. So that's first. And C, Stephen, is, yeah. And so I'm not really teaching you C. I am tricking you into a moment where you're going to learn computer architecture, so that then when I teach you Java, I can reflect back on how the C causes Java to work. So when the C for everybody is going to have probably 5 courses in it, and I'm only going to have the first 2 done this fall. 5 Coursera length courses, which is 4 to 6 weeks. So it'll be a 4 to 6 week course, 4 to 6 week course. That's what I'm trying to do for fall, which is really the introduction to C. But then there's going to be an introduction to hardware and assembly language, introduction to, introduction to object orientation, and how you might build object orientation, and when Java and JavaScript and Python are building object orientation, how they really build it. Why does the list object have a sort method? Who wrote that? Where did it come from? So we're going to look at that. So one of the things that we'll do in the later parts of the C class is we will look at the assembly language that comes out of a C programmer and understand that. We will look at how if you are writing a language like C++, how you might build object orientation. We'll look at things like garbage collection and stuff like that. So with that, I am taking a very specific approach to this C Programming for Everybody class, and because of that, I'm using a very, very special textbook. And please tell me that I brought it with me today. Yes, I did. So this is the textbook. This is the textbook that I am using to teach C. This is for people of my age and some people a little younger. This was our moment. So I'll tell you emotionally what happened when I saw this book for the first time. I had been writing in Fortran and Pascal. And one of the things that Fortran and Pascal didn't do very well was characters. And look, if you look at his website, it's full of characters. And the future of computing is not numbers, it's characters. The internet is about email. It's not about weather. It is some about weather. And so when I saw the C programming language, I saw a way to handle strings. It was the first language I ever used that was really good at strings. Now, what we'll learn in this class is C is terrible at strings. Python is great at strings. But compared to Fortran and Pascal, C was wonderful at strings. And so strings are what operating systems do because they help you read and write files or send data across a network. So string data, byte data, is a real important thing. Not just number data, but byte data. And so for me, this was like hearing my first rock and roll song. I'm like, okay, that's what Fortran's really doing, and I think I'm going to stop writing Fortran. And I'm going to stop writing Pascal, stop writing all this stuff, and I'm going to fall in love with this language. Now, this language is flawed, right? And it's flawed from a perspective of memory leaks and memory fragmentation that makes it really difficult to use this language well. And that's where Python and Java do such a better job of dynamic memory allocation and deallocation and memory fragmentation and handling all that. And that's why I'm thankful every time I concatenate a string in Java or Python or JavaScript. I'm like, thank you, Python people, for making me not use C to do that, because I know how hard it is. And I'm going to teach you how hard that is. So we're going to look at how Python does what it does from a perspective of the way people wrote Python in C. And so there is multiple C books out there, including more from Kernighan and Ritchie. But I don't want a flawless book. I want a book that's full of flaws. This book is out of print. You can't buy it. But it is lovely. It is full of flaws. There's just complete things that are completely wrong. I'm looking right now at page 14. And I'll just show you page 14 on the book. I'll put it up here. Page 5, come to me 14. Page 14, come to me 14. Okay, this part of this book, written in 1978, is talking about how you know you've reached the end of a file in C. Okay? And you ask for a character, and it either returns you a character or an illegal character, which in 1978, depending on the computer you were using, was going to be -1 or 0. And so every time you wrote a C program in 1978, you had to know which computer you were on. And EOF, end of file, was either -1 or 0, depending on whether you were like on an IBM mainframe or a PDP-11. Okay? Well, they fixed that. And so I've put this book online, but I have to add all this commentary to it. And I say, modern C compilers define EOF in standard IO.H include file, and you should never define EOF in your code. The actual value of EOF is -1, but you just don't define it. This nuisance of various values of EOF was resolved shortly after 1978. But what I want to talk to you about is the evolution of computer languages. Not that there is one and I want you to know it so you can go get a Facebook job with a damn interview. I want you to understand computers and how languages evolved. And what's cool about this book is this book was the beginning. It's like it breaks time into two parts. There's BC, before C, and AC, after C. Literally from 1978 to today, everything that we did in programming was affected by this book, whether you know it or not, either directly or indirectly. And so this book is like the Big Bang of computing and software. This is the Big Bang of computing and software. So we're doing like physicists do. We're going back to the Big Bang, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at every line of the Big Bang so we can connect the hardware phase of computer science to the software phase of computer science. Today is the software phase. You just don't think about hardware anymore. Hardware people do. Electrical engineers figure out hardware and make it go faster and faster and faster and make it smaller and smaller and smaller and use less and less and less power. That's a heck of a job. I'm not teaching you that job. What I am teaching you is how to be a programmer. But I want you to understand the moment of the foundation of the field of software development, and that is this book, the 1978 book. Now, here's the interesting thing. This book is copyright, Prentice Hall Incorporated. And it's copyright in, like, if I look at the thing, it's copyright in 1978. And here you have a book online where I scanned every dang chapter of this book. You can see the scans, my scans. I scanned it. I OCR'd this book, optical character recognition. I scan it, I OCR it, and then I add these comments to it. Now you might say to yourself, isn't that a violation of copyright? And what I will suggest to you is you scroll to the bottom of the page. Scroll, 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 and read this whole thing. I have some wonderful, wonderful people at the University of Michigan, hi Melissa, and others that are helping me. There is a concept in U.S. copyright law called fair use. And what fair use means that if the purpose of this, my use of this textbook, is historical, scholarly, research, and used in a teaching context, I can do it. And in particular, you can't buy the book. So if I want to teach about the book, I have to get you a copy of the book. You can't buy it. I have literally been buying copies on Amazon of this book, and I have like 10. I bought a bunch of them so I could get a good one to scan, because I'm sort of saving it, right? I'm saving this book from the trash heap. And so away we go, because I think this book 100 years from now will be seen as really, really important. So I think it's important that we have it. And the other thing that this has is there is no accessible version of this book. And so I am making it not just a set of images, but a set of text. So this book is all in text. And so if you are watching a screen reader, this is just HTML text. So we're converting the entire book to HTML so that people with disabilities can make it big, make it small, copy and paste it, make it talk. I don't know if I can even make it talk. If I had a screen reader, it would talk. And so this is going to be read to people with vision limitations. I'm adding commentary to the book. You can see the commentary wherever it's kind of got a little Somewhere there's a commentary. Come on, Chuck. There's some commentary, right? Right. It talks about like the characters and all these things. So there's all these things where I want to add some commentary. So I'm adding commentary. Then if you look at source code, you can actually make a copy of this source code and paste it like into your own text editor, right? So I've copied it. And then you can also pop this up in a little editor. Now this will look familiar to you if you have seen my autograder in Python for Everybody. I'm trying to make an autograder so that the first, I think I might stop at chapter 7. First at least 5, maybe 6, maybe 7 chapters, I want to make it so you don't need to install C or have access, although things like pythonanywhere.com will give you a shell account. I also want to teach you how to use Linux in this class. Does Dennis and Richie know? Well, one of them is no longer alive. That's unfortunate. No, I have not contacted them yet. I expect that when we get a little farther along, we'll make contact with Prentice Hall, and we will make contact with Dennis, Kernigan and Richie. But I wanna get a little further down the road because I'm sure that they get called and asked and bothered continuously because they're like super famous, and so I wanna be a little farther down the road before. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. I love this book, Daniel. I do love this book. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to you. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for this book. It is the Rosetta Stone. It is like touching history when you touch this book. So if you want, you can be part of the, you can buy one of these things for $500 online at Amazon. They claim that they're new. And I bought a $300 one to get what they claimed were new. Because I just went through and I looked for whatever. Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. Okay, so I'm building an autograder right now, and this is actually what almost made me late to the studios. I was struggling with the autograder because there are things you can do in C that can really harm a running system. And if I'm going to run this on my system, and so that means you compiled code, but I haven't run the code yet. The executing code needs more security, and that's what I'm working on. Security is not my strong suit. And I got to talk to Michael Hess, my friend, whose strong suit is security, and he'll just tell me, oh, this is what you should do to allow that code to execute safely without you being able to format my hard drive in my server by running code. And so that's the idea. And so I'm adding value to this book. We are doing it in. That's part of the reason I have the 42 on it, is so that I don't get in too much trouble before I've got it figured out. Now, one of the things, if we take a look at CC4E in general, is that I have, and if you've been following me for a while, you know that there is a thread of innovating with respect to accessibility, and in particular for blind and low vision people. And so if you saw Postgres for Everybody, I had some experimental lectures that were not using PowerPoint at all, that use HTML, and I did that sort of as a test to see if anyone would complain if I didn't use PowerPoint, and nobody complained, which was kind of amazing. And so I have been throughout my career running sort of live tests of like almost A/B tests of things where I think it's more accessible, but I also want it to be more usable, right? I don't really want to say I've built something super accessible that's not also usable. And I think many blind people or low vision people would agree with me that something that's just for blind people tends to become out of date, and it doesn't tend to be, that it doesn't get a lot of maintenance or whatever. Whereas if you just have a thing that's really accessible for everybody, and it's also good for blind people, and we're all using the same thing, it's way better, right? And so having the book and everything fully in HTML, all browser-based, is a great start. And I have a dear friend who works for my company called Chris Knapp, and you can look him up with Accessiversity, Accessiversity. And he has a blog post, and he's blind. So I actually employ a blind person, and I am working with the folks in India that I'm hiring them to help make everything that I do more accessible. And so I'm really having a good time employing folks that are actually blind to help me make this more accessible. And so I am, no Fortran for everybody. I gave up on Fortran once I took C. But I do have a book that does do Fortran, but I don't have time because I want to teach it Java, and Java is going to take me a very long time to teach. So one of the things I'm doing for accessibility for this class is I'm changing how the lectures work. Now this jumps to a new page and it's going to change eventually. But here's the thing. This is a podcast. This is audio-only lectures. So one of the things that I've learned now for almost 10 years of talking to people with limited vision about how to teach is that the most important thing is to not necessarily to never use anything visual, but make sure that everything that's visual is also described in words in the lectures. So in a sense, you've got to tell a story. And so the fewer diagrams that you can use, or if you use diagrams, fully explaining the meaning of the diagram in the audio, right? And so you see that. And I have been working at that. I've been getting better at that. But here's the thing. In this class, I will have video pieces, but the core material is going to be purely audio, okay? Purely audio. And that is to force me to teach you the C language using only audio. It's for visually impaired folks, but if I get this right, then it would be good for everybody because now you can learn C in your car. You can subscribe to this podcast, take it with you in a car, and you can hear me say, and then the for loop exits because of the break statement. And so what I'm doing as the lectures is I literally read the book. And so part of the reading of the book, I mean, if you watch, actually the only one I have up is chapter 0. The idea is, oh, come on, Chuck. The idea is that if you're vision impaired, you can have this page up, you can be listening to my audio, you can use JAWS or whatever to find the right place, and I have all the pages linked. And so anytime I want to, when I read the exact text that Kernighan and Ritchie wrote, but then anytime that text like needs some interpretation, like why are they talking about the PDP-11 and what's an interdata 832? And what's this and what's that? And what's Unix? A lot of people don't even know what Unix is. They don't even know what Unix is. Unix is like what came before Linux. And so what I did is part of the reason I wrote all these like call-outs about my own reflection on it is as a teacher, that's one of the things you do. You don't just read this material, but you reflect on it and you add value to it. So, oh, there's a typographical error. Independent. Hang on a sec. Please. Okay, let me show you something. This is all in GitHub. See this? Independent. Steve, you could fix this before me. If you go to GitHub, CC4E, you can find it. It's all in GitHub. And in the book, let's go find, not that one, not that one. This is chapter 00 MD. It's in Markdown. Chapter 00 MD, Markdown. And then I can edit it. What? Particular. Independent. Oh, it's not a typographical error. See? I make typos when I search for typographical errors. Well, if you edited this and you'd save it, you could send me what's called a pull request. So I'm going to cancel this because I didn't have a typo. Most of my mistakes are when I think I make mistakes. No, just kidding. So you can actually edit this, and if you look, I've got a number of contributors, and you are welcome to contribute as well. And so here's a list of the contributors so far. This is just a public GitHub repository. Oh, that light went out. Come back, come back, come back. Come back, Samsung, space, it'll come back. So if you look, you see that I've got 3 people, or 4 people. Well, 3, me and 3 people. And so I'm getting fixes from other people. Yasha is one of my grad students from my Django class in the spring. And Mislavsky is just fixing stuff, and he's just roaring through. He's from Russia, I believe, and I don't know who Fishy's son is. Oh, West Bengal, India, 3rd year CS undergrad. So someone was looking at it. Somebody here, perhaps, was looking at it and fixed it. If you go to my Python for Everybody, you see Stephen Caddo, who's still talking on the thing. You see he's like always fixing my stuff, and then it shows up as a pull request for me. And then I just merge the pull request. Okay, thank you. So, so you can help me. You're welcome to help and get some credit in GitHub and get some cred. And here's the fun thing, is a lot of you already know C. A lot of students already know. A lot of people who took Python already knew C because they took it in their undergrad. And they're like, I kind of didn't learn much in my undergrad when I took C. And I'm like, yeah, because they taught it wrong. They taught it wrong. I'm going to teach you right. So if you know C, you're going to love this class, I think. But if you know C, please help me, right? So if you look at the book right now, I have focused most of my effort on Chapter 0 and Chapter 1 because I am, right now, the thing I'm working on the most is the autograder. And I've got the lectures to the point where I think I like them, right? I like how the lectures form. I like how I make the lectures. So I've got a chapter, I've got an about page that talks about the copyright and stuff. So this is the first lecture I've got. And then the second lecture is Chapter 0, which is reading their introduction. So they called Chapter 0, their introduction, they called it Chapter 0. That, of course, is a play on zero-based arrays, which if you've taken Python for Everybody, you know I make a big fuss about it. Zero-based arrays really kind of became part of C, and Python was heavily influenced by C. So it's not surprising that Python would use zero-based arrays because all the nerds of the time, like myself and Guido van Rossum, were like, oh, C is great. And so Python became kind of a layer on top of C. And so there's a lot of homage to C. And the same is true for PHP. PHP was built on top of C, and so there's tons of homage to it. So, okay, let's see. Have I talked enough about CC4E? So I'll talk about this in 4 weeks when we do a live. That'll be August, and then by September I'll be doing it live. If you log into this class, if you just do log in, I did that with Google, you will be a member of the class. Oh, how come? Oh, I'm not logged in. So let me log in. Why is it not logging me in? Oh, I'm gonna probably need a code again because I'm from, oh, no, so here we go. So it has a threaded discussion system. The lectures will come. It doesn't have lessons. It has a little code thing. That's just a test. And the book is here, and then discussions. And I will be talking to you in the discussions. And so we will teach and take this class together in September. And this will be our learning system. It won't be in Coursera. It probably won't be on campus at the University of Michigan, won't be on edX, won't be anywhere. This will be the only place. And I think I've got about 40 or 50 people signed up already, and I'll start sending you email as the thing gets better. I really need to get to the point where the autograder works and Chapter 1 is done, and then I'll start talking to you about it. But for now, you can just come to this website, you can sign up for the website, and then you'll be part of the, you don't need to do anything else other than go to this website and log in, and you're part of my fall course. That's all you got to do. Okay. Okay, so I think I have talked way too much about CC4E, and I will continue to talk way too much about CC4E. I did have one more topic before we just go to the chat room in YouTube. I did want to talk about translation of my books. So those of you who sort of followed me along, when you see something like www.pyfree.com, another W there. You see that I talk a lot about if you want to use Creative Commons licensed materials. Oops, I'm messing up my microphone. You always see I talk about copyright all the time and licensing. Because I'm obsessed with it. I'm an open source person. And so, so everything that I do, I want you to use in your own teaching. I want you to feel free to adapt it for your own teaching. And everything I do is open source, and it's all sitting in GitHub. And one of the great joys of doing that, I make pretty good money out of teaching these courses. And it's what helps me pay for my race car. And I didn't try to make money. I tried to give it away, and I keep trying to give it away. And so one of the things that I have learned is that if you start something and you're really trying to make money as your main goal, you will usually asphyxiate it before it gets a chance to grow. You lose oxygen when you spend all your time to try to wrap something in a business model. And so I didn't wrap Python for Everybody in a business model. I mean, Coursera wrapped it in a business model. I didn't wrap it in a business model, and Coursera sends me money, and so that's really awesome. And I make a race car, and maybe you come to a race and visit me. Some students have. But one of the cool things about taking an open strategy is that people sort of appreciate the fact that you're giving, and people are themselves motivated as sort of like a fair exchange to give themselves, right? And so I wrote this textbook, right? Python for Everybody, Charles Severance. And if you go to the end of this textbook, one of the appendixes, Appendix B, copyright detail, you see that I encourage you to translate this book. And if you translate this book, I will let you, you're free to do anything you want electronically. And if you're going to translate it, you have to give me back a free copy in PDF of the book. So there's a free Spanish PDF, a free Italian PDF, a free Portuguese PDF, a free HTML PDF, a Korean translation that kind of was a weird commercial thing, and the Chinese translation that's not really done. And there are folks they're translating it to Russian as we speak. So part of the deal is if you want to translate this book, you got to give me back a free copy to give to my students, right? Of course, Sarah, everybody gets the book free. But then what I do, if folks want to, is I let them actually sell the paper copy themselves and make the money off of the selling of the paper copy. I'll tell you, no one's getting rich off of these, right? But because of that sort of very liberal view and the fact that I'm giving this to everybody, people have no fear of giving back to me, right? Because I'm not like a slime ball. I'm not whatever. And so my book has been translated by some amazing people, right? And so let me get this in more historical order. Yeah. Oh, wait. Where's my Spanish one? I don't have a copy of the Spanish one. This, I believe, is Portuguese. It doesn't even say Portuguese on it. Oh, no, this is the Spanish one. Oh, this is the Spanish one. This is the Spanish one. See that? I don't know languages. So this is a Spanish version of my textbook, and we have a very popular entire Spanish version of the course on edX, and this textbook supports that. And so one of the things that you'll notice is that a lot of people think of translation as sort of a menial administrative task, and I don't. I think of translation as co-authors. People who translate my books, I consider them important co-authors. And so you'll see that on the cover of the English book, which I wrote, it's got my name. But on the cover of every translation, the translators are featured as well. And to me, that's part of free and open is also acknowledgement, meaning that I need to acknowledge the wonderful people that did all this great work. And so there's a Spanish version. I'm a big fan of beginning programming courses having Spanish translations. I'm not so worried about like a Postgres Spanish translation, but I am worried about a Python Spanish translation because I think that Python is the path to learning programming. Once you know how to program, then language is less of a problem, but I want this to be in other languages. So that's Python in Spanish. This is my internet networking book, also in Spanish. The fun thing about this internet networking book is the figures written by a dear Italian friend of mine, Mario Toselli, and he does this thing called sketchnoting, and the idea of this was to make all the figures have as little English in them as possible. Yeah. And so that you didn't have to translate the figures, right? So here's like a figure that's talking about dynamic host control protocol, DHCP, and you see there's no English in it. So this is a fun translation by Fernando Tardio, and that's really cool. Let's see. This is the Portuguese translation for mostly sort of South America, Portugal and Brazil. And this was, if I'm not mistaken, oh no, this is the Italian version. Where's the Portuguese version? Oh, I am so bad. So this is Italian version. It's the Italian version, and this one here is this one here is the Polish version. And the cool thing about this is that there is this Andrzej Wojciech is a professor at University in Poznan, Poland, and he's a computer science professor. And he translated not only the book, but he also translated the entire website. So if you go to pi4e.pl, which is the Poland thing, you see a complete Polish version of the autograders and everything. And so this teacher, he teaches Python in Poland, and he uses his own textbook. Now this one we couldn't publish on Amazon. The other ones I can publish on Amazon. This has to be published on Amazon Germany, and so this translator, he published it. It's all in his name, and all the proceeds go to him because we couldn't get it published on Amazon Global. So and next week I hope to have be able to bring to you the most recent translation, which is the Greek translation of the Introduction to Internet. And Konstantia has translated this. She's a high school teacher in Greece, and I've learned a lot about publishing in Greece because Amazon doesn't publish Greek texts, at least in their print-on-demand service. So the whole translation thing is just part and parcel of a community of learning. That is not just me being here in my ivory tower at the University of Michigan, and I'll tell you, it is nice to be in an ivory tower at University of Michigan. There's so many things that I'm so privileged, right? But my job, I think, I'm given certain respect and credibility in my ivory tower, and I consider this my job to celebrate everyone else, right? To take my, whatever it is, whatever gifts that I'm given, I need to share those gifts and celebrate everyone else's contribution to this course. And so, shoot, we're an hour and 20 minutes in, and I mostly did the talking. So let's switch to the chat room. I'm sure some of you have a bunch of courses that Abdullah, I want to translate it to Arabic. I think there's an Arabic translation going on right now, and it's a group. There's an Arabic translation going on right now, and they're pretty organized, and so I'm hopeful that we'll have an Arabic translation. And that would be really exciting for me. And again, I'll sit here on live and I'll show it to you. I won't know a word of it, but it'll be okay. Let's see. Do you teach? Oh, Game Maniacs. Do you teach advanced OOPS? Do you mean object-oriented programming something? Is that what you mean by that? And so, yeah. So in terms of object orientation, I also think that computer science introduces and pushes object orientation too early. Object orientation ultimately is the only way to remain sane in a million lines of code, and so object orientation is really essential. But if I teach you object orientation giving you 50 lines of code, you can't see its power. And so I am in the CC for E and eventually the Enterprise Applications for Everybody Java course that I'm going to teach. Object orientation will come in, but it will come in with reason, not just, hey, you got to learn object orientation because they might ask you some questions at your Facebook interview, but instead you see how large teams of professional programmers use object orientation like they wield it like, a fine instrument to solve problems. And I will show you crazy things that are done with object orientation that couldn't be done without object orientation, and how beautiful it ultimately is, which you're never going to get in a computer science class. You're just never going to get it. They're like, inheritance. Yeah. I'm like, okay, yeah, inheritance, of course. I mean, we talked about that even in Python, about inheritance. Basic object orientation is a beautiful concept, and you need to learn it quietly, gently, a bunch of times. But I will show you object orientation for grown-ups, which I claim no computer science class in all of humanity, in all of human history, has ever taught properly. I'm going to teach you the right way. So, can you suggest some things for students to do so that their chances of admission in data science master course at University of Michigan increases? Okay, well, we talk about this every time. Happy to talk about it as often as necessary. So the admission process for the University of Michigan School of Information, where I am proud to be a faculty member. Our admission process is surprisingly human. It is not based on a spreadsheet. It is not based on your scores. We have a wonderful, I'm not on the committee that does it, but we have a wonderful staff that sort of helps, and then we have faculty that are involved in it, and people look at your application. And so if you want to be successful applying to the University of Michigan, be careful not to look like you're applying to 75 places and you just are copying you just change the name of the university over and over again. Because if it's just sort of generic for other schools that are going to treat you like a number, then we're going to kind of not feel like you have had a respectful conversation with us. And so when you're writing your materials and preparing your materials, you're preparing it for human to be read by a human. We are not obsessed with test scores. We don't care too much about the GRE exam or SAT or ACT exam because they are for us. Yeah, they are for a certain set of cultures good predictors of success, but for other cultures they're not a good predictor of success. And that's the essence of our admissions process, is we do not want you to be admitted to our program if you're not capable of succeeding in the program. You think that you come to the University of Michigan and you pay money and that I'm going to do your homework for you. I'm not. I did your homework for you, in this session, but you are expected to be able to do the material on your own. Okay? So you need to be able to do the material on your own and handle it without a lot of help. We're going to, have people, but you got to do a lot on your own. And the problem with taking a class online in the Master of Applied Data Science is that it is fast-paced. I will be honest, and some of you may be mad students. I'm curious if you agree with me. It is difficult to be a MADS teacher because the pace is so fast. It starts and stops in 4 weeks. That is just like, it's like a drag race. I'm an endurance racer, by the way. We drive for 14 hours with 5 drivers. That's an endurance race. MADS is a drag race. You go, and then you're done. And then you go rebuild your engine. Teachers need a rest after we teach a maths class. I don't know how you students do it. I have tremendous respect for it. But back to admission. We are going to teach you a lot of stuff in a short period of time. And it is fun, and it is enjoyable, and it's amazing. But if you're just kind of like coming in to hang out and you kind of don't know stuff, you're not going to do well. So our admissions process, we want you. We want people from all over the world. We want people with all kinds of backgrounds. We're not just looking for someone who got an A in computer science undergrad. Not at all. We are looking for people who have job experience, and for people who are coming from accounting or marketing or sales or whatever. But at the same time, you better know your Python. You better know your stats. You better be ready to learn. And you know, we talk about how you can do this with a family, and you can. The key thing is if you're balancing perhaps a career and a family and your education, if you're strong, you can do it. But if you're struggling the whole time in your education, your family's going to suffer and your job is going to suffer, or your education is going to suffer. And the last thing we want to do when we admit you is take your money and then have you not succeed. And so the value of our education is your success when you finish. So our job is to build an experience that you will succeed and you will do well, and when you leave, you're going to succeed even more. And so we can't like say, here, I'm just going to hand you a University of Michigan degree and you give me like $5,000. If all I did was send you a piece of paper and you gave us $5,000, that would be really profitable. But our brand would be destroyed, right? So we have to actually teach you something. We can't just take your money and not teach you anything. And you have to be successful. And if you're not successful, we're not going to be successful. And if you're not successful, the money you gave us is a waste of your money and a waste of our time and harms our brand. And so from an admissions perspective, think, are you competent? Are you ready for the material? Do you have the right kind of personality for it? Etc. And so that's the key. And that's why you should take Python 3 from Dr. Resnick and crew, and rock that class. Don't just kind of get someone else to do your homework and have a little piece of paper that says, yeah, I did it, because you're going to walk in and we're going to give you an assignment and assume you know that material, and you're going to be like, oops. So to apply to the MADS, be competent, be well prepared, be cool, be interesting. Don't worry, we're not looking for everyone to come in to be clones, right? I think we had a conversation. It was a joyful conversation. I don't know how it turned out, so I can't tell you the results of it. But our admissions people were talking to a student who had years and years and years of programming experience and leadership in technology organizations, and never had an undergraduate degree. That happens. It does. It really does. People like take a degree and they quit for some reason, and then they become really successful. And we're like, can we admit someone that doesn't even have an undergraduate degree? Clearly this person is talented, hardworking, qualified, will succeed, will be cool to have around because they have such a cool background. They don't even have a bachelor's degree. Is that a problem? So I don't know how it turned out, but my answer in the email thread was, dang, let's find a way to make this happen. It's so cool. And so that's the kind of thing that our application process is, right? I mean, the staff were like, what do you think, Chuck? What does everybody think? So like, can we make this happen? And so our staff goes off and fights with the rest of the university to see what our policies are, or there's this, that, or the other thing. So I don't know how that turned out. I hope that person did get admitted to our MADS. I love it. If you're qualified, I think you should be allowed, and I think it'll be cool. So there you go. Hi, I started programming a few months ago, but I'm developing games right now in Unity. Would you suggest do something to continue with it, or do Python programming? Well, you do a lot of Python in Unity, and so I think that you develop. So developing games in Unity is a fine activity, because I think once you learn Python, the thing you've got to do is you've got to apply it. And it doesn't really matter. And that's why I have Django for Everybody. You may or may not want to build a website, but my secondary goal of Django for Everybody is to make you do more Python. And at some point, the Python becomes second nature, and you realize that you're just solving problems. And the Python is the syntax that you type in. So if you're using Unity and you're using Python in Unity, then all the stuff you're doing is just making you a better programmer. And so don't feel like there's one thing you should do next. You should keep programming. That's what you should do next. So, yeah. CS course, a course on CS course design. Oh, that's a bit of inception. Perhaps even a course on CS course design, Randy. So let me talk about that one, Randy. No. Computer scientists are stuck. I wrote a Quora article about this somewhere. The high level is that computer science has made a mess of things, and the technology companies have made a mess of things, but they are now connected in a way that neither can fix it, in a way. And the mess is that computer science focuses on these sort of trivial nuggets of computing that are hard to understand. Real complex algorithms, like do a balanced binary tree with versions so that it changes in time, and so you can roll time backwards and forwards. And so write 250 lines of code of C to do a versioned binary tree. And so computer science thinks that's really exciting because it's really easy for me to explain what it is, draw a few pictures, and then you go and spend 2 weeks writing some gnarly code. And it is a good exercise. It's not a bad exercise to do that, because writing gnarly code is a good just thing. It's like working out in a gym to be stronger. So that's what computer science wants, these things that are narrow and constrained, and they don't want to show you a million lines of code because you wouldn't have it figured out at the end of 15 weeks. You just are starting at the end of 15 weeks. So they want to keep it small and difficult. And so then that's what the computer science degrees produce, is these savants on small, difficult programs. HackerRank, all these things. If you look at it, they're all about small, difficult, fully constrained, right from scratch programs. Nothing building on top of it, no long-term sense of it. You build it 2 days, come back, be done with it. That's what the market produces in terms of talent. And these folks are talented. It produced me, right? You know, my computer science degree produced a person who could do these things, and then over time I was able to do the real things that folks want as a professional program, which is different than a skilled computer science graduate. And so the problem is that they want to validate at companies like Facebook and Amazon and Google, they want to validate that the person sitting in front of them is a strong computer scientist, so that then they can later train them to be real professional programmers. And so their interviews are stuck on measuring the result of a curriculum. I don't like that curriculum. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but it's missing the more important part, which is the actual skill you need to be successful at Facebook. But the problem is it's really hard to measure what I'm trying to teach. It's really easy to measure what computer science teaches, because you walk into Facebook and they say, build me a versioned binary tree, and you got 4 hours. Now most people went to HackerRank and they already built a versioned binary tree, and they copy and paste the answer. And they're like, yep. And then the Facebook interviewer will say, what does line 17 do? And you'll say, well, that's actually a dynamic reallocation, and to make sure that we don't run out of memory. And they're like, okay, you know what you're doing. You're welcome to hire. Here's your training materials for Facebook that have nothing to do with the damn interview. But the problem is that the computer science and Facebook are joined in that Facebook doesn't know how to change, and computer science doesn't know how to change. If computer science changes, they will produce graduates that can't get jobs at Facebook. And if Facebook starts asking for things that computer science is not producing, then they can't hire anybody. So they're stuck in this thing where computer science produces a flawed product, an incomplete product, and Facebook tests for the incomplete product and then completes the product at their own expense. And so you can see how there's no motivation to change on either side. It is a prisoner's dilemma. There is a better way, but neither side can independently improve either one. But there is a better way we have to jump to. And so for me, I don't want to go and lecture computer scientists. I feel sorry for them. They're stuck. They got to keep making the same product that they've always made. What I want to do is use things like Coursera, FutureLearn, and edX to give you opportunities to learn differently. And if you had a computer science degree, what I then want you to do is come to my classes and learn how to be a professional programmer from a computer science degree. And the computer science degree is not a waste. All that stuff that you learn in computer science, that I learned in computer science, I'm so glad it's there. It came at a cost, a lot of work, but I'm glad I did it. So what I'm going to do is augment that skill with real world skill. It's going to take me 2 years to do that, but I'm not going to lecture computer science. I will criticize them, but I'm not going to lecture them because they're stuck. They're in a prisoner's dilemma with Facebook and Amazon and Google. So what advice would I give for a beginner in programming? And the answer is program a lot. Only do things that make you happy. Don't do things that make you feel like you're no good. Don't do things that make you unworthy, because we literally all are unworthy, right? So it's really easy to say, well, I don't know the Rust programming language, so I'm terrible. I should go learn Ruby on Rails, so I'm terrible. The answer is you got to get to the point where programming and learning to program is something that brings you great joy. I'm not very fun to go on vacation because I'm always building something new. I'm tinkering. I'm like a person with some metal and a blowtorch. I'm making programming sculptures in my spare time, right? There are things that I have to do for other people, which are more work-like, but then there's things I do for myself that are art-like, right? And so building the auto grader, I work 12 hours a day this summer. I could be like just sitting on a boat, drinking iced tea. But instead, the thing that makes me happiest is working on an auto grader for you, on how to run C code reliably without you breaking my server. And I just can't stop thinking about it. I just can't even stop thinking about how to build this thing. And so for me, it is joy. If I have a chance to be on vacation, I'll bring my laptop and I'll think about Docker as an isolation or as a sandbox. And when I'm driving, people are like, why don't you read books on tape? I'm like, no, I'm thinking about designs of Docker isolation when I'm driving cars. So, Sarvesh, what do I think of the Google IT support certificate on Coursera? I think it's a good idea, but I don't think it's the answer. So if I was interested in an IT support job, I would go get that certificate, no question. There was a certificate called A+ before that, and I think that A+ is a horrible certificate, but unfortunately it gets you a job. Well, fortunately, I guess. The stuff you learn to get an A+ certificate is generally completely stupid and meaningless and so narrow that it's completely useless in the job that you're eventually going to get. So once again, the Google IT support, I'm going to guess that 95% of it is ultimately useless on any job that you're going to get. However, it's going to get you the job. So for me, what you need is you need to understand that you have some things that are these certificates that are low-hanging fruit, like an AWS cloud certificate or a Google IT certificate. They're going to be a pain in the neck. You may or may not use any of it at your next job. I'm going to guess the AWS. But you have to realize that you have to invest in your entire education so that you know things like Python and operating systems and Linux and stuff like that, so that when you get the job, you're not useless, because those certificates, while great signaling, just like a computer science degree for interviewers, they're valuable signaling for interviewers to say you're worth hiring. but then they got to train you. And so what I'm saying is you need to train yourself both for the job and for the interview. So you have to understand that much of your training is for the interview. And if you focus only on the stuff that you need to get through the interview, then you're not going to learn, not going to succeed at the job, and you're not going to have joy in your job. And so you have to understand that these kind of certificate-only kinds of things have their place. Not bad, but they're not the answer. Oh, here's Shakesh. Dr. Chuck, it has been a long time since you last uploaded an episode on your Learner Privacy podcast. You are correct. And I have written many in my head. And so the problem, come back. So the problem with learner privacy is that my secret agenda with learner privacy is to point out to all of the universities in the world that use outsourced cloud-based learning systems and give all your data to these privately held third-party scumbag companies, that I want them to think differently. And so learner privacy is my platform to criticize companies like Blackboard, Desire to Learn, Canvas. As their service, they move to a service thing, and they hold your data, and your universities don't hold your private learning data anymore. And so learner privacy was my sand in that oyster just to piss them off. The problem is that learner privacy was just getting going when COVID happened. And I felt like scolding universities for their crappy, including my university, their crappy, gutless decisions to give student data to third parties. It just felt like it was the wrong time. COVID was the wrong time to wag my finger too much. And so I'm like, wagging my finger at these loser universities that use Canvas, that'll wait. I'll come back to it. I got a couple of episodes of learner privacy that, if I ever figured Docker out and could write a good autograder for CC free and felt like September 1 was going to be safe, I would immediately go record a couple more learner privacy things. So the first topic that I would actually record is, unlike the other learner privacy ones, I will record something that is sort of half nice. And I'm gonna talk about Zoom. And you might think that I would think that Zoom is terrible. And there's a lot of things that I think are terrible. I think Canvas is terrible. I think Proctorio is terrible. I think that Turnitin is terrible. But I actually don't think Zoom's terrible. And why is that? So Canvas is an LMS that your loser campus is giving your data away to a third party. Proctorio is a loser company that crappy teachers who can't write decent exams decide that they want to take pictures of you in your underwear while you take exams as a compensation for their lack of ability to build good exams. This is a short version of my ranting. And Turnitin is a bunch of scumbags that take your data and use your data to check everyone else. And they keep your data, and they're a $2 billion company because of the data that you gave them. And you didn't have a chance because the damn teacher decided to give your data to them, and you didn't give their data to them. And so those are horrible, horrible companies, okay? Now, Zoom. What about Zoom? Zoom's got your data. When I record a lecture in Zoom, it goes into Zoom land. And then if you miss the lecture, you get to go see it in Zoom. So here are two things that I love about Zoom from a privacy perspective as an angry, grumpy old man about privacy. First, in Zoom, you see yourself and you see all the other students. And if you're in my class and you look around the class, you can make choices about your privacy. You can walk out of the room. If you don't want to come to class and you don't want to be seen in my class because maybe you think someone's looking for you and you don't want to come to my class, and you say, Chuck, I don't want to come to your class. Is that okay? I'm like, sure. You go right ahead. don't come to lecture. We'll figure out a way that you can get what you need out of this class without coming to lecture because you're afraid of some reason for your privacy to protect yourself. I don't know why you want to do that, but that's not my job to ask you why. So you can opt out of being in my class publicly. And you know when you walk in that you're opting in to being in my class and being with the other students. And someone could walk by the hallway in Angel Hall and peek in and see you. And you know that. You are controlling your own privacy when you come to my on-campus class. And I will help you if you want to have a more private arrangement. Okay? So you see, you can consciously make decisions. And if you're in my Zoom class, you can hide your name, you can change your name, and don't send video. Now, I don't say, again, pisses me off when teachers say, you got to send video so I can see if you're sleeping or not. You know what? If you're sleeping, that's fine with me. I'm glad that you're sleeping listening to me versus sleeping listening to a Netflix show. And so I don't need to see you awake. And so if you want to change your name to Student 42 and you want to turn your video off, you can do that because you see in Zoom, when you see yourself, you know what your privacy, you're controlling your privacy. And again, part of it is me having policies that let you control your privacy, but I do. I let you control your privacy. And here's the cool thing. Let's say you do have video and you're not super worried about privacy and you're not worried about the other students seeing you. And so you might even ask me a question in class. Raise your hand and say, Dr. Chuck, can you do problem 8.4? I'm like, okay, sure. What problem are you having? And we have a conversation. And now you're recorded. You're recorded. You knew what was happening. You knew that. You chose to do that. If you wanted to send me email, say, Dr. Chuck, I'm afraid to ask you a question in class. I don't want to be on my voice or anything to be on recording. Great, send me email. Fine. But you did record. And then Zoom records you. And then all the other students who are in that class can see you. And now you've been seen. But here's the cool thing. Zoom deletes the data after a while. So you don't know this. You're in my class. We did some Zoom. I recorded it so students could see it if they missed it. 3 months after the end of the class, 3 months after each thing, I start getting email message from Zoom. Hey, I'm about to throw away that lecture. Do you care? If you want to keep it, go over here to keep it. But if you don't say anything, I'm going to throw it away. And I never say anything. Why? Because that was a lecture from like 3 months ago. If you didn't watch it, too bad for you, right? These are lectures and office hours and stuff like that. You're not permanent artifacts, right? And so Zoom throws away your data. I mean, and why is that? Well, Canvas, all your learning data is a tiny amount of data, so they all want to keep it forever so they can run artificial intelligence on your data. And whatever the hell it is that they think they're going to get out of that, I don't know. But they want to keep your data for a very, very, very long time. Zoom, if they keep your data for a long time, it costs them money. So guess what? They're motivated to throw video data away. And so that tells you how it is that we can find a path in privacy between handing the data to somebody who's going to keep it forever and possibly run artificial intelligence on it, and using somebody, because I don't want to write the Zoom software and I don't want to run the Zoom software on my campus. But the throwing away of the data and the opt-out and faculty members who are not idiots is an important part of it. Because faculty members have to realize that when they force students to give up their privacy just to get a grade, that is a choice you can't make, right? So if I tell you, well, participation, I'm going to give you 10% of your grade is me seeing your face in every lecture, well, I just forced you to make a privacy choice that you may or may not want to make. So I am full of things to talk about in my learner privacy. And let's see if I can. So I don't know if you know, but if you look on the screen right now, you see my current race car, which is a Dodge Neon. So I've been running Dodge Neons for a long time. And we're getting tired of Dodge Neons because we can't find parts to it. Let me see if I can find a picture really quick. Come off the screen and just come to me so I can hunt around on my hard drive for a little while without erasing. Let's see. Do I got here? Mustang. Do I got a picture? No. No, not that one. Photos. I want to show you my next race car. Oh, gosh dang it. Oh, well, okay, so I can't do that. Where is graphic design? Okay, so now we can go back. Unfortunately, I don't have the picture of as built. So if you take a look at next year's race car, so last 3 years we've been running Dodge Neons. They're front wheel drive, and we're having trouble getting parts for them. And so I'm switching my race cars to be 2006 Mustangs and black with learner privacy featured on them. So thanks for the learner privacy. Okay. So Shashwat, any advice for making SQL application from a resume after doing SQL for everyone specialization? That's a really good question. I would think that probably the better thing for you to do is not just build something that's SQL, but do something that's a little more data science-like, where you do something which is kind of like the last course of Python for Everybody, course 5 of Python for Everybody, where you're taking some data that is sort of raw and imperfect and put it in a database and then clean it up in that database and then visualize it. And so that's the kind of thing that you can do with for a resume. And it's not so much you're showing that you do something that's just SQL, but you're doing SQL in service of data cleaning and visualization. And they can see that. And then so you show them the process of here's this raw data from 2 or 3 sources, maybe an API, maybe some data sets that people have. And then I put it in a database, and then I worked it in the database, and then I did a visualization. And that's the way, because then they say, oh, cool visualization, this person knows SQL. So that to me is the better way to do it, is to turn it into more of a data science and a visualization. Yeah, Mustang's a lot better. Yeah, because we can get parts for Mustang. How did I like? How did I like learning online this year? That was being asked to somebody else. It was definitely better when we were physically present in class. What's your opinion on someone who wants to study computer science at the university? That's a pretty typical topic of mine. I would say, don't not study computer science just because of what I say. Please, if you have the talent and the skill and the prerequisites, by all means, study computer science. I would tell you 2 things. First, be prepared. You should know how to program before you begin computer science. You should not anticipate that they will kindly, gently teach you how to program. They have a class called Intro Programming, but I can assure you it's not intro programming. It is soul-crushing, vicious, speedy programming that the only people who are going to survive are the people who already know how to program. So this is why I want you to learn, if you're going to computer science in college, I want you to learn programming in high school. Or take a year off and go learn programming. So the best idea is to know how to program. And the reason for that is that, and then I would also say that you should, while you're working on computer science, you should in parallel keep learning how to program on things that you love at the same time that you're learning program on the silly things that they're teaching you in computer science. And because you don't want to get so beaten down in a computer science degree that you can't feel joy. And so the biggest thing is it's a bit of a slog in a computer science degree, and there's value in the slog, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be a slog, but don't let the slog take your joy away. Keep building cool things. Work on gaming, like someone's talking about Unity. You know, make a little video game on the side, just something so that you don't lose the fact that programming is joy. Because if you just focus on your degree and you're just like, oh man, it's so hard, and I'm working hours and hours and hours. In those hours you learn. I mean, really, there's value in it, but you can also lose joy. And so I would say in a computer science degree, prepare so you don't feel so stressed, and take care of yourself during the degree. Just take care of yourself in general, and do things that keep technology and joy together. Oh, when am I planning on bringing other guests with me? Yeah, I keep wanting to do that, and Tim and I will do that, and we're all set up to do that. We can do it on Zoom, and so yeah, I got a couple of guests that I'm thinking about bringing. I'm thinking about bringing in some of the people that did translations, for example, and but I also want to bring Melissa in. Melissa Levine. She's the lawyer that is advising me on copyright, and so she's working on some stuff. She'll hopefully be featured in a lecture in CC for E quite soon, and then sort of when she's kind of got all the stuff she wants. There's a couple of lawyers involved in all that fair use stuff, and that'll be so fun to bring her in. And I don't know if we'll bring her into the studio or we'll just bring her in with Zoom, but we can make that for sure. Oh, Coursera, Git module better than two others. Yeah, it was Raspberry Pi. Yeah, I'm not going. So a lot of people would say go with Raspberry Pi or Arduino. I don't think that's the answer. I would rather show you assembly language. Turning on and off lights is interesting for some people who want to build physical computing devices. But as Stephen is saying, you can't learn enough Git. And so I'm going to guess that the Google Coursera Git module, as Stephen says, Coursera, just anything. I bet their Git module is really good because Git is just something to learn. And so that's cool. So I agree, I think, with what Stephen is saying in the chat. Georgia Tech, so what are your thoughts about Georgia Tech's Master of Online in Computer Science? Will we ever see such an affordable program from the University of Michigan? So first thing, I want to say that I have amazing respect for the Georgia Tech Computer Science online degree. I will say that when we've studied that, I've studied that from its inception. It seemed like a bold move. I know some people who were part of that planning, and I'm impressed with their thinking. The biggest thing that sort of blew me away in a good way was the fact that they were focused on what they thought of as the marginal cost of each next student, and they tried to get they basically said to themselves, we're not going to try to recover the fixed cost of producing the material in terms of fixed cost of producing the material in terms of the tuition. And so they tried to set the tuition based on the real marginal costs of like teaching assistants and this and that and the other thing. And so that's how Georgia Tech came up with such a low price. And I think that it's really good. I think that they made a few mistakes in the beginning, underestimating how difficult it was going to be and how much those fixed costs weren't really fixed costs. They were really slow-moving variable costs, right? So the idea that you would record the perfect few sets of lectures, if you have a model that talks about them as fixed costs, then you don't want to re-record them, because if you have a thing that, if the fixed cost thing is going to be a fixed cost like every 12 months, it's really not a fixed cost anymore. So I think that's kind of the fallacy of the Georgia Tech model. But what the Georgia Tech model has done is given access to thousands and thousands of people around the world to a high-quality education from a great school that otherwise couldn't. Would the University of Michigan ever try to do a low-cost option like Georgia Tech in our master's degree online? And the answer is we wanted to, but we were not allowed to. We wanted to have our online course have lower tuition than the rest of our on-campus courses, but we couldn't. The powers that be, which the School of Information where I work, we're very good at getting the powers to be to like say, sure, go ahead and give that a try. But in the tuition, they were not going to do it. What they did was they did allow us to give in-state tuition to everybody online, and so that was their compromise. And 3 years ago when we built MADS, the Master of Applied Data Science, I was angry that they wouldn't let us sort of be like Georgia Tech. And so I was angry when I first heard about it, because I loved what they were trying to do in Georgia Tech. But in a way, 3 years ago when I was doing that, it was a fallacy for me too, right? Because the notion that there were fixed costs and marginal costs and you should focus on pricing based on marginal cost, not on fixed cost, turned out to be sort of false for us too. And so, you know, we actually pretended when we started out that we were going to have some fixed, we kind of go with this whole fixed cost, record the lectures once, replay them over and over and over again. That cost is kind of sunk cost, don't worry about it. But it just turns out that to give you the education that we want to give you, that is got some interactivity to it and some and good support and all that stuff, the marginal cost is higher than you think. And so I'm actually glad in retrospect that we didn't go with an extremely low price, because now as we look at a class and we go like, oh, wait a second, you can't do one faculty member for 100 students. You really need 3 faculty members for 100 students. We have a funding model that allows us to make those kinds of choices. And so our costs have gone up. We're still making profit, right? So that's good, but our costs have gone up. And so I think that by having it higher cost and the fact that we can bring more faculty in and make the courses more interactive and less just canned stuff, and you know, less pure auto graders for your essays and more human beings reading your essays, more of that, we have space in our charging model and our funding model to say, you know what, we need to put more resources into these courses. And we don't have to say, oh crap, our business model makes it so that now we have to lose money. So the University of Michigan in School of Information in MADS is able to make deeper investments in our online programs, where we learn over a couple of years that our original assumptions weren't right, and yet we're not sort of causing us to like be unmotivated and start losing money on these things. And so that's why the University of Michigan, I don't think School of Information, at least on our MADS program, is likely to sort of go to the Georgia Tech level of funding. And then the other thing is what these fixed costs do. The fixed costs mean that we can rebuild some of these courses and re-record them. And one of the things that you see happening is you see us taking material that was created by MADS at some non-trivial cost and then repurposing it outside of MADS in Coursera, FutureLearn, edX, or whatever. And so that's, for example, how Django for Everybody, Postgres for Everybody came. It was a course I dreamed of building. I never got to build it on campus, but I got to build it online, on MADS. And then the money that went into producing all of that also, as a side effect, gave, in a sense, a free pgfree.com and a free, it subsidized entirely the cost of the Coursera production, right? Now there's always costs of like, you know, putting it in Coursera and typing the quizzes back in and stuff like that. But And so that's why I'm happy with our current pricing. I wasn't always happy with our current pricing. I do think if we get to the point where we're better at this, and we're working very hard for our master's in online data science. And I think if you were one of our students or are currently one of our students or going to be one of our students, when you come in, you'll see that we're like still very actively engaged in building it. We didn't outsource it to a company like 2U with a New York studio that made everything and then like we didn't do anything. No, we're just in the mud with you all the time. We're just fighting, trying to figure out how to make it better, and we have the funds to do that. So have a good dinner. +1 for Git. Any chance I might create a Git for everyone? Probably when I start doing my enterprise application for everybody, or how to be a professional programmer, then there's going to have to be bits of Git in there. But I'm going to take like everything I do, I'm going to take a very narrow view of Git, and I'm only going to teach you the essence of getting started with Git. And so I have this cheat sheet because I'm not really good at Git. And so I have mentors that help me get better at Git, and I make a cheat sheet. So I'm going to teach you how projects use Git and how you can function with projects with Git, but I'm not going to teach you like pure everything it is to know about Gits. Randy, what are your thoughts or opinions on digital badges and credentials for courses? So Randy, I love them. I absolutely love them. You know, I hadn't always loved badges. And the thing that bothered me about badges was badge evangelists, badge advocates would always say that badges are the solution to everything and we don't need anything but badges, and if you just do badges then everything's going to be great. And that of course is a gross oversimplification and on the surface incorrect. Once those people during kind of the first 3 years of the badge furor, the excitement, the unbridled excitement about the badges were changing everything, badges kind of went quiet for a while. And then what happened was we finally came to the realization that badges are a good thing and we should give out badges, and don't worry too much about whether or not this, that, or the other badge has value. Because what we realized is that we, as the makers of the badges, the teachers and the universities and schools that make badges, we can't declare them as worthy any more than the University of Michigan School of Information can't declare that our master's degree is worthy. The only measure of the worthiness of our master's degree is how well you do after you take it. And so when you walk into an HR, if you say you got a master's degree in information from the School of Information, University of Michigan, the best thing they could do is say, oh, that's right, we hired 3 people with that same degree and they're awesome. One of them's a vice president. Yeah, you'd be great. So the badge that you got, they don't go like, I've never heard of this University of Michigan. Let me Google it. Ooh, it's the #1 public university. I know nothing of this, but because of that, I will hire you. Who are you again? So the badge has to be valued in its use, not in its existence. And like any credential, whether or not when Coursera started doing certificates, I'm like, that's a dumb idea. Now it's not a dumb idea. Why? Because the market understands what a Coursera certificate means. And if you take a badge from Python for Everybody, like here, take a look at badge of Python for Everybody. I got badges in Python for Everybody. So I can, where's my badges? Badge for Python for Everybody. Here's my badges, right? And this is literally a badge award. And this is a open badge. There's a standard for making badges. Badges are weird little images with special metadata in them, and I actually make that badge. And so this is a file that you can download and carry around with you, and it has metadata about where you earned it, who is giving you this credential, and who asserts that you are deserving of the credential, right? And so lately I found people using these badges. These are just from me. They're just like you enrolled in Python for Everybody. And what happens is the badge itself is not the answer. But when you use a badge and people begin to see the badges and they correlate performance to the badge, then the badge is valuable, right? And so that's the key about badges. And so we got to stop saying, I made a badge, we can get rid of all education. Can't say that. What we say is, go ahead and make badges and let the market decide whether or not the badge is a good idea. Yeah. So Randy, I mean, do you mean badges in Coursera? But I mean, I give badges out in Python for Everybody and Web Applications for Everybody. And so I give them out if you're using it on the website. Now, I don't give it out if you did the homework inside of Coursera, because Coursera then is your badge thing, and they're the ones that do it. But if you do it in Python for Everybody, then I give out badges. And I haven't yet made badges for Postgres for Everybody. So Francisco, how to sign up for CC Free? That's a great question. And we're running out of time by a negative 11 minutes. So at some point I'm going to have to give up here. ccfree.com. You just go to ccfree.com. C Programming for Everybody. Everyone wants to know, why is it called CC Free? It's called CC Free because that stands for C compiler. That's what you used to type on Unix in the old days. So you just log in. And the moment you log in, you're do you need a STEM background to join Michigan MADS? I don't know what you mean by STEM background. You don't really need to be a biologist. You don't need to be a physicist. None of that would be bad. You need to know statistics and you need to know Python programming. That's the two real critical things, and an interest. Learning SQL wouldn't hurt. So, yeah. Yeah, got that. So Sarvesh, I'm 13 and from India. I've completed Python for Everybody and didn't feel overwhelmed and felt really easy. I feel good about that. I'm doing class 10 online. I don't know what that is, but I assume that's a certificate of some kind. What advice would you give me about my higher studies? I would say, Sarvesh, if you're going higher studies, I would say just what I said about computer science. Don't rely exclusively on your formal education. Develop an active, sort of fun programming activity outside of your formal education. And that will give you a balance between the difficult and challenging moments in your formal education. And believe me, not just you, me too, you get stuck and you got a deadline on Thursday and you got stuck and it's really kind of like painful. The pain gives you focus, but it's also painful. And so if you're only focused on these things that are like Thursday, every Thursday you got to do 10 hours worth of work, at some point it becomes drudgery to you. And so that's why I want you in your programming to keep like a little hobby going, whether it's making a game or something. I mean, for me, my hobby is building things like CC Free while my kind of professional programming is working on Sakai. And that's hard, and it's hard work. I mean, I love it. I love the people in Sakai. But the point is like CC Free is my kind of fun distraction because I control it. I'm building it. It's all mine. So, okay, yeah, just use the login link. Okay, we got it. Okay. Well, I think we should wrap up. Thank you, Stephen, for helping. You probably did a better job, Stephen, than I did, because Stephen's awesome. Stephen's everywhere. Everyone here at the University of Michigan Academic Innovation knows Stephen. He's fancy. He's famous. He actually has been here in that room right over there. We flew Stephen in a couple years ago before COVID. How can one fill the gap between knowledge we gain from structured knowledge sources and the real world problems that require interdisciplinary knowledge? That is the question, Anu. That's the question. I don't have a good answer. So, I'll just pitch a little bit to the next one. We'll do this same thing in 4 weeks. Maybe by then I'll get Melissa to talk about copyright and fair use. That would be really fun. I will certainly talk more about CC Free. It's my current summer obsession. I spent an entire weekend working on autograders and realized this morning that I was probably taking a complete wrong approach, which is okay because I learned a lot on the way. And so I'll talk about CC for E, and perhaps we'll celebrate another translation of another book, which is almost done. So, okay, so I'll sign off here and just stare at the camera and wave until the control room shuts me off.